I've been a paid Glossika user for almost 2 years. I've got 9,000 reps of nearly 700 sentences, and this is my Glossika review for Thai. Welcome back to my channel. This is Nick Learns Thai. Thanks for joining me. Just before we get into the video, I just want to tell you about a Facebook group I'm involved in, which is for Thai people trying to learn English and people that speak English trying to learn Thai. So we're having a bit of a community there, and we're getting together to organize language exchange sessions to help each other learn together. So if you're interested in that, please click on the link in the description. I credit Glossika with playing a big part in my transition from learning mostly from books and class to being able to practice by speaking with native speakers. I used to think of Glossika as a flashcard app, but really it's its own system where they have thousands of sentences in the target languages, and there's various tools there for you to practice listening, typing, reading, and speaking and recording those sentences. For Thai, they have 5,000 sentences, which were human translated from a set of initial English sentences. The audio of the sentences is also from native speakers and not computer generated. The biggest downside of Glossika that I've found is that it's quite tedious and therefore boring. And if you're easily fatigued like I am, it can be hard to keep up with your reps over the long term. Pricing. So you can get the Thai only package for around $13 per month on the annual plan. However, if you wait for Black Friday, then they often seem to have deals. I've had a deal over the last 2 years that I've been a paying member. So if you would like to get a discount, I suggest waiting for Black Friday and seeing what kind of discounts they've got. The Glossika system has two main modes. There's learn for learning or hearing new sentences, and then there's review for reviewing and relearning and practicing those sentences that you've seen before. Both modes have options for listening to, speaking and recording, typing and reading those sentences. If you're wondering about the recording feature, you can actually go into the library section of your dashboard and see each of the sentences that you've already seen before, and you can listen to your recording and then listen to the native speaker's recording side by side, so you can compare them and see how close you are to the native speaker's pronunciation.
ผมคุณยาวมาก
ผมคุณยาวมาก There's also an array of settings that can be adjusted to change the difficulty or adjust the system to fit your learning style. Those include things like showing the base text, so English in my case, or the base audio, or turning them off, repeating the target audio, so Thai in my case, or not repeating it, time intervals between the repetitions of those audios and also between the two different reps, and also the target audio speed, ranging from 0.5 speed up to 1.25 speed. When I initially started using the platform, I was trying to use all of the different features for both the learn and the review modes. So that includes listening, recording, and typing in both modes. But I found that I did burn out a bit quickly on that approach. So I've adapted my approach now, and this is the setup I currently use. So when I'm in the learn mode, I have it on listening only. So I listen to the sentence and then I actually repeat it to myself without using the recording function, and then wait for the next one to come up and then repeat that one myself. So this allows me to do it hands-free. So I use the mobile app for this, and it's a bit faster than using the record function, I found, because if you use the record function, you have to wait between each rep for the recording to sort of start. And I find it much quicker to just repeat it myself. And I guess I'm still getting a pretty similar benefit from that. And it's a little bit faster. And like I said, I can do it hands-free when I'm doing other tasks like driving or things around the house. Then when I'm doing my reviews, so in the review mode, I use the platform on the computer. I do my heaviest learning on the computer, so the computer interface works well for me. And I use all the different options there to do a full review of the cards that I've seen before. So that includes listening to the audio,
ปกติวันเสาร์อาทิตย์จะไปดูหนัง
typing the audio, and then doing a recording of me saying the sentence as well. ปกติวันเสาร์อาทิตย์จะไปดูหนัง. Now, when I actually do this, I try to keep my eyes sort of looking down, so I'm not actually seeing the text of the Thai sentence when it comes up. This allows me to listen to the audio and then try and type the sentence without looking at it first. So I can try and see if I can actually type it just from the audio alone without actually looking at it to help out with spelling and stuff like that. This is sort of an additional challenge that helps to keep the motivation up for me. And I think it does help as well to practice my spellings, practice my typing, practice my listening comprehension. There isn't a native setting in the app to hide the Thai text. This is a system I've adapted where I just sort of try to look down and not look at the Thai text so I can do this extra challenge. So this combination of settings in both the learn mode and also the review mode, I found it to be really good for practicing listening, pronunciation, spelling, and typing in particular. I think it also must be helping me get a good feel for different sentence structures and also helping to improve my vocabulary. But I don't feel as strongly about those, or at least they're less quantifiable in my mind than those other skills I already mentioned. But I think it must be helping with those to some degree. There's also a little bit of reading practice in there with the Thai text sentences, but it's not as strong on reading as the other things I've mentioned already. Okay, let's talk about the productivity I can get from this app. Glossika works well on desktop with their web interface, and working on the computer is my preferred way to learn. So that works well for me. They also have mobile apps, both for Android and iOS. I haven't been using them as much as, like I said, I prefer to do most of my learning on the computer. But I have started to incorporate the mobile app in my learn portion of my Glossika cards. And that's because, as I mentioned, I can do that hands-free when I'm doing other tasks. So that's great for that. There's also actually some settings in there that you can only find on mobile, I believe. So I'd like to see them eventually get over to the web platform as well. But at the moment, you'd have to find them in the mobile apps. Back to the desktop side of things, there's keyboard shortcuts for most of the main actions, although unfortunately they're missing one for the replay audio button. That's something I've made as a feature request already, so hopefully they bring that out soon. On the downside, the recording feature, while being a great feature for being able to go and compare your pronunciation to the native speaker, I do find that when you add that recording feature in there, it adds extra delays and pauses as the recorder gets turned on, and that sort of decreases the overall productivity of the process. So maybe that could be improved, or like I've suggested earlier, you just sort of turn that off and do repeating of the audio yourself without the actual recording function turned on, and then you can get through your reps a bit quicker, and then it's a bit more productive. Okay, let's talk about the motivation and the fun in the platform. Now, like I've already mentioned, it's quite a boring process. That's not necessarily a Glossika problem per se, because lots of flashcard apps and other apps and just processes within language learning in general are going to be quite repetitive. But certainly the Glossika system is, I would say, perhaps more on the end of the more boring of the different processes you can have, because it just is so repetitive. So that is one of the major downsides, I think, probably the biggest downside of this system, and then therefore of the platform as well. Now, the platform does have some kind of motivating features built in. For instance, you have your daily streaks, so you can set your goals for each day, the number of cards to learn and to review each day, and then you can track your streak, that number of days in a row you've achieved those goals. So that's one thing that adds some motivation. You've also got a dashboard that shows your stats over the lifetime, and a graph that shows your goals and your stats as well. But I think perhaps more could be done in this area to add some more motivational aspects to it and try to get you in there into the app more often and try and beat that boredom aspect I mentioned. Okay, other cool features. One cool feature is that it will recognize different spellings of the same word. For example, mai and mai. The 5,000 sentences are organized in a A1, A2, B1, B2, C1 format. And then they also have lower and upper within each of those bands as well. And you can move them through them, getting progressively harder as you go. or you can take the sort of entrance test, which will give you some multiple choice questions to determine which band that you should start in. There's also different algorithms that can control how the repetitions get served to you in the review mode. So like different sort of spaced repetition type algorithms, so you can choose the one that you want. And there's also the ability to review your recordings in the library tab. So you can see the sentence, you can listen to your recording, you can listen to the native speaker's recording and make a comparison between the two and get a gauge on how well you're doing with the pronunciation of each sentence. Okay, now for a few tips. Don't cheat on your entrance level test, your test for determining which band that you're going to go into. I mean, I didn't actually cheat, but I did find that the test was a little bit too easy to guess what the multiple choice answer was meant to be. And it ended up with me initially being placed in a much higher level than I should have. And it wasn't until after I'd actually finished those higher levels that I came back and started again. I decided to start right back at the beginning, actually, even though that was probably a little bit lower than my current level. But I sort of thought I wanted to get the most out of the platform by trying to just go through all of the different sentences. But the fact that I started at the higher level does mean that now I have a weird mix of like really difficult sentences and really easy sentences. So I would prefer have not done the test at all in the beginning if I'd known it was going to happen like that. So my recommendation then is to not guess on the test there and try to either just start at the beginning or try to make sure that you're accurately representing your current level so you don't end up in the wrong level when you do that test. Tip number 2 is just to wait for that Black Friday discount if you are interested in that. And tip number 3 is just to turn off that recording mode if you want to increase your productivity. So the recording mode introduces those extra pauses and waiting times. And if you want to just really want to burn through those review cards or learn cards, then turn off that recording and just you can repeat yourself in between just out loud or to yourself. And you don't need to actually record it in order to get that practice in. Okay, the last section here I call sort of cons, gripes, and feature requests. Not necessarily sort of deal breakers on the platform, but just things that maybe don't work as well, or that, features that I think that I would like to see them add. So they have a timer in the platform, which is meant to time your sessions, but I found that it's not really accurate. So I'd like to see them improve that timer. There's no keyboard shortcut for replaying audio, which I do think is quite an important one. There's limited options for creating your own decks. So it would be cool if there was a way to import sentences, although in practice for this system, it might not work that well because of the high quality audio that they have built in there. It would be difficult to import audio. But it would be nice to have a way of reorganizing the sentences that are already there. For example, if you've got some particular topic or material that you want to review, it'd be cool if you could search the database of sentences to find sentences that are related to that topic and then put them into a separate deck so that you could then just study on that. That's perhaps more similar to like a standard flashcard type approach and a flashcard type app. So maybe Glossika is not really trying to be, offer that sort of functionality, but it's still something I think that would be nice to combine the power of the high quality audio and sentences that they have with some of these other features that flashcards apps have. Now, I did make this suggestion to support, and they let me know that there is a feature to favorite different sentences, and then from those favorites, you could create a deck. I guess that does get some of the way towards that functionality, but it's not as full featured as it could be to try and really organize those sentences into different decks based on different types of learning you want to do. So I definitely still think there could be work done on that to add that functionality. Some of the sentences I do feel are a bit unnatural, and I have had a Thai friend look over my shoulder a few times and make comments that some of them don't sound that right. I think that's perhaps because they were translated from English rather than being sort of natural Thai first sentences. That's perhaps always going to be an issue with these sorts of apps because a lot of them are going to start with English first and do a translation rather than starting with individual sentences from each language because that's a lot more work. But yes, that is a downside then, I guess, unfortunately. So I'd like the option to be able to hide the Thai text so that I can practice typing the sentence just from the audio, and there's no chance of me peeking at the Thai text accidentally. And of course, it'd be great if I could toggle it on if I need to peek at it, but I'd like to be able to hide it by a setting by default if I could. And the last feature request is for the platform to automatically detect if my pronunciation is incorrect or good. Initially, I thought that this was the point of the recording feature, and I was a little bit disappointed when I realized that it was just a recording and it wasn't actually analyzing my pronunciation. But actually, I also emailed support about this feature, and they told me that there is actually a feature related to this in beta at the moment. It has limited languages, and I don't know how long if it will ever get to Thai. But at least it is something that they're thinking about, and it could be down the road for the app for Thai as well. So that's pretty cool to think about. And one more gripe here in this category is just that most of the sentences end with ka, sort of female ending, which as a man, that is a little bit frustrating because there's two different ways to spell ka, and I don't actually even know the rules for determining which is right in which situation, so I often seem to get it wrong when I'm typing the sentence. Now that it is able to detect different spellings of the word mai, the question word mai. So I don't know why they couldn't just add that for ka and krup as well to help us guys out with our sentences, but for whatever reason they haven't added it, and that is a bit of an annoying point for males in particular. In conclusion, I think Glossika is a great app for learning Thai. There aren't that many apps out there that cover Thai, as we know, so it's great to have an app of this quality covering it with 5,000 different sentences and with native speaker voices and native translations as well, not computer translated. So I think it's a great resource for Thai learners. The biggest strength of the platform is using it for practicing your speaking and particularly pronunciation, and then listening as well. And the biggest weakness of the app is that the process in itself is just not that interesting. It's a little bit boring, it's a little bit tedious, and that can really hurt your motivation to keep up your reps and keep it going. Because like I said, it is helpful, but you need that second part of it, which is the motivation to actually do it. And certainly the way the process is designed and the way the app is designed could do better to make it a bit more motivational, make it a bit easier to keep going with those reps. Okay, thanks very much for joining me for this Glossika review. I hope that covered all of your questions. Just before we sign off here, don't forget to check out that link in the description for the Facebook group. This is a Facebook group I'm involved in. It's a English and Thai language exchange group. So we're meeting up there, we're discussing different topics about language exchange, about learning Thai, learning English together, and we're setting up sessions for Thai speakers learning English and English speakers learning Thai to learn and practice together and help each other out. So if you're interested in that, please click on the link down in the description, and I hope to see you there in the group soon.